not living in normal times, as we've been discussing for 3 hours, but I think it's important to remind everybody that in normal times, the inaugural address is actually not political at all. I mean, it is the result of a political outcome of an election, but it is typically a president of either party discussing where the country is now and where it needs to go moving forward. It doesn't mean you're not discussing challenges. That's a part of it. You're discussing opportunities. But what struck me about this address was it was not just politicized. It was very personal, and there were a couple of things that I highlighted for myself. I mean, when he said, I've been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. I think we would all disagree with that characterization, with this worth discussing. I was saved by God to make America great again. Never again will immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. Typically, a president is not discussing themselves, even though they won. The country elected them. They are discussing the country they are about to govern. And that struck me. The last thing I would say, just to build off of what Nicole said, is, of course, there are always crises going on in the country. The border is broken. It has been broken for some time. But border apprehensions are down. He talked about crime. Crime in major cities is down. He also talked about oil production. The climate is in crisis. Meanwhile, the country, the United States, produced the largest amount of crude oil than any other country in the world last year. So that also struck me as him projecting upon us crises that are maybe not the right definition of the crises we're actually facing.
Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true.
But I'm also thinking about the coincidence on the calendar, I guess we could say the collision on the calendar, of his inauguration happening on the same day that we as a nation commemorate a civil rights icon, Martin Luther King. You know, to hear someone in that overly performative resuscitation of Dr. King's speech almost felt like trolling. When Donald Trump said that he is going to try to create an America that will live up to Dr. King's dream, and at the same time talking about changing the name of Mount Denali, at the same time talking about removing diversity efforts, at the same time presenting a cabinet that probably has the most questionable qualifications and is the least diverse that we've seen in some time. And, you know, Dr. King said in his last book, was based on a question, where do we go from here? And I think that that's the question that we face as a country. In Dr. King's case, the second part of that title was chaos or community. I'd like to think that we'll reach for community, but we're going to see a whole lot of chaos.